There are things people say that sound completely normal at first, but afterward, you're never the same person again. I was 32 years old, and 5 years ago, my mother said 7 words to me. Just 7 words, but enough to erase 27 years of trying to be part of the family. Don't come home this year. Emily doesn't want drama. If you've ever been hurt by your own family, comment 1. I still remember that moment clearly. November 21st, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was standing in my tiny studio apartment in Boston. My suitcase was half packed. A pumpkin candle was burning, its sweet scent making me believe that maybe this year would be different. I had already bought the plane ticket, non-refundable. I had prepared myself to try one more time. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I smiled. The first mistake I made that day. Hi, Mom. May? She cut me off, her voice cold, emotionless. Listen to me. Don't come home this year. I laughed. I thought she was joking. What do you mean? Emily doesn't want drama. I tightened my grip on the phone. What drama? You know how you are. A sentence I had heard my entire childhood. You always make things complicated. I swallowed. I haven't even talked to her in months. Even better, keep it that way. I just asked why she didn't invite me to the baby shower. That's exactly the problem. Her voice turned sharp. You always make everything about yourself. I froze. Outside the window, snow began to fall. Light. Slow. But cold enough to make me realize one thing. I was no longer allowed to exist in that family. I already bought my ticket. Then refund it. Not a second of hesitation. Emily is pregnant. She doesn't need stress. Click. The call ended. No explanation. No apology. Not even a moment of doubt. Just a door closing. And this time, it didn't open again. I sat down on the edge of the bed. The plane ticket was still on the table. A piece of paper that just minutes ago meant going home. Now it didn't. Now it was proof of one thing. I had always been the option they could discard. And the most painful part, it wasn't the rejection. It was, they didn't even have to think before doing it. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. I wish that phone call had been the first time. If it truly had been the first, maybe I would have been shocked. Maybe I would have reacted. Maybe I would have been angry. But no. The scariest part was, I wasn't surprised. I just realized that this had been happening my entire life. Only this time, it was so clear that I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I sat on the bed, the plane ticket lay on the table. And the memories started coming back, like a film I had tried to turn off a long time ago. My 16th birthday. I had prepared for it for a whole month. Not a big party, not anything extravagant. Just 3 close friends, a small cake, and a bowling night after. My mom had promised. This time I won't forget. I believed her. I always believed her. Until that morning, Emily called. Crying. She had failed her math exam. I still remember my mom's voice when she turned to me. Your sister is having a really hard time. She needs me. But today is my birthday. We'll move it to next week, okay? No one asked if I agreed. No one asked how I felt. It was just a decision that had already been made. The party was cancelled. My friends texted apologies for not coming. The cake melted in the fridge. And the next week, there was no party. No one mentioned it again. As if my birthday had never existed. Then came my graduation day. 4 years, working part-time, studying at night, living off instant noodles. I was the first in my family to graduate with honors. I thought this time would be different. I walked onto the stage, looked down at the crowd, searched for them. They weren't there. I kept smiling, taking photos, receiving my degree, pretending everything was fine. 2 hours later, they arrived. Late, very late. I'm sorry Emily had a prenatal appointment we couldn't reschedule. A sentence, so light as if it meant nothing. You understand, right? Understand. I always had to understand. Your sister matters more. No one ever said it out loud. But that was always the truth. Some people grow up in a family. I grew up in a comparison. I wasn't the daughter. I was the other one. The one who could wait. The one who could be postponed. The one who could sacrifice. The one who didn't matter as much. At first, I resisted. I asked questions. I explained. I tried to make things clear. And every time, I got the same responses. You're too sensitive. You make everything complicated. Why can't you just be happy for your sister? Little by little, I learned something. Just because you speak doesn't mean you'll be heard. So I stopped. I became quiet. I became easier. I learned how to not ask for anything, not complain, not need attention. I thought, if I could just be small enough, maybe they would keep me. But I was wrong. There is no level of small that is ever enough. I was 27. Sitting in a cold room, holding a plane ticket I couldn't use. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself a question I had always avoided. If I disappeared, would they even notice? The answer came quickly. No thinking. No hesitation. No? And that didn't hurt the way you might think. It made me feel empty. A strange kind of emptiness. Like, you finally understand the truth you've been avoiding your whole life. I wasn't rejected in a single moment. I was erased, little by little. Every time I was postponed, every time I was overlooked, every time I had to be understanding. Until there was nothing left of me in that family. If you've ever been the one who always had to be understanding, comment I've been there. I thought, if I just stayed quiet a little longer, everything would be okay. But that night, I did something I had never done before. I called my father. And I didn't know that call would be the final thing that completely shattered whatever hope I had left. I stared at my phone screen. The name Dad was still there. A name I had never dared to delete. Not because I was sure he would choose me, but because I was still hoping. A very small kind of hope, very fragile, but enough to make me press call. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up when he answered. "Hey, kid." His voice was low, hesitant, like he already knew what this call was about. "Dad." I swallowed. "You know what happened, right?" A pause. On the other end, I could hear the TV, a football commentator. "Familiar. Tu familiar." "Yeah, your mom told me." I closed my eyes. "And you're okay with that?" Silence again. Longer this time, heavier. "I think your mom just wants to keep the peace." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I feared. Keep the peace. By leaving me out. It's not like that. Then what is it, Dad? My voice started to shake. Not because I was weak, but because I had been holding it in for too long. From where I stand, it's pretty clear they're choosing Emily over me. No immediate response. No denial. Just emptiness. I could picture him, sitting in his usual chair, rubbing his forehead, like every time he didn't want to face something. "Dad," I asked again. Slower, clearer. "Do you want me to come home?" That question should have had an immediate answer. But it didn't. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. I heard him breathe, then a small cough. "I think this year you should listen to your mom." It wasn't a shock. It wasn't a punch. It was something inside me falling. Softly, but completely shattered. No anger, no sadness, no more trying to understand. Just emptiness. "Okay," I said. Calm. "I understand." Don't be like that." "I'm fine." I cut him off. Not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. "Goodbye, Dad." I hung up. He didn't call back. No message, no explanation, no choice. I sat there, in a room growing darker by the minute. The light outside faded, the cold slowly crept in. But I didn't get up to turn on the lights. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I understood something clearly. It wasn't just my mother who had abandoned me. My father had too. He just did it, with silence. Some people hurt you by shouting. And some people say nothing at all, and still hurt you more than anything. I always thought my dad was the middle one. The fair one, the neutral one. But I was wrong. Not choosing is still a choice. And he chose. He chose them. He chose what was easier. He chose silence. Instead of choosing me, something inside me turned off. Not hope, not love, but the need to be loved by them. I didn't want to prove anything anymore. Didn't want to try anymore. Didn't want to be enough anymore. I sat there for a long time. Until the room was completely dark. Until I couldn't even see the plane ticket anymore. And in that darkness, a small decision was made. Quiet, not dramatic. But it changed everything. If I didn't have a seat at their table, I would build my own. If you've ever waited for someone to choose you, and they didn't, comment I understand. The next day was Thanksgiving. And it was the day I officially started living a completely different life. That morning, I woke up to a very strange kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that says, no one is thinking about you. No messages, no calls, not even a simple happy Thanksgiving. I lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling. Not thinking anything, just empty. Then I heard sounds from upstairs. The neighbors. Children running, adults laughing, doors opening and closing. A family gathering. A real holiday. The smell of food started drifting through the vents. Turkey, butter, spices. Scents that used to mean one thing. Home. I sat up, made a cup of instant coffee, stood by the window, looked down at the snow-covered street. White, cold, empty. Exactly how I felt inside. By noon, I made a mistake. I opened Instagram. Emily had posted a family photo. Mom, Dad, Emily, her husband, a little kid in a turkey sweater. Everyone smiling. So happy. The caption: grateful for family, the ones who matter most. I zoomed in on the photo. Counted the chairs. No extra. No missing. No place for me. They didn't forget. They built a world without me in it. I put my phone down, leaned my head back, closed my eyes, and a dangerous thought appeared. Maybe I deserve this. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm too much, too difficult, too dramatic. Maybe if I were better, things would be different. I had thought like that for 27 years. And in that moment, I realized something. If I kept thinking this way, I would never get out. I stood up. No overthinking. No giving myself time to crawl back into bed. If I had to eat alone, I wasn't going to do it in the dark. I put on my coat and went outside. Riverside House was one of the few places still open. An old-style restaurant. Dark wood, warm yellow lights, glasses clinking, laughter, voices. And everywhere, people with families. The hostess looked at me. A look I would never forget. Not judgment, but pity. Just one. I nodded. Yes. They led me to a small table. In the corner. Near the kitchen. Next to a large table. A family. 3 generations. Grandparents, parents, kids. They talked over each other, laughed loudly, passed food around. No permission needed, no walking on eggshells. I sat down. Opened the menu. Pretended I was okay. But I wasn't. The food arrived. Perfect, beautiful, warm. But I couldn't taste anything. I just moved it around on the plate. Trying not to look next door. Trying not to compare. Trying not to think. Why do they have it, and I don't? But eventually, I looked. The older woman at the next table laughed. A real laugh. Not forced, not guarded, not trying to prove anything. And in that moment, something inside me broke. Not because I wanted their family, but because I realized I had never had one like that. Not once, not twice. Never. I put my fork down, looked out the window, tried to swallow the tears, tried to stay quiet, tried to become invisible, like I always did. But this time, I couldn't. A tear fell. Then another. I turned away, grabbed a napkin, tried to wipe it quickly. Are you okay? A voice. Soft, warm. I froze. I turned. The older woman from the next table was standing beside me, looking at me. Not curious, not judging. Just caring. I'm fine, I said automatically. Just, à la guise. She smiled. A very different kind of smile. Like, she knew I was lying but didn't call me out. Allergies rarely make people cry on holidays. I let out a small laugh. A fragile one. Almost breaking. And I didn't know it yet. But that small moment was about to change my entire life. I looked at the woman. She was in her 60s, light silver hair, warm eyes. Not the kind of warmth people use for politeness, but the kind that actually sees you. I'm fine, I repeated. This time softer, weaker. She didn't argue, didn't press. Just nodded, as if she understood. Then she said something I had never heard from anyone in my family. No one should eat alone today. I froze. Such a simple sentence. But I didn't know how to respond to it. She glanced back at her table, then looked at me again. My family and I are eating over there. We have more than enough food. I immediately shook my head. No, I don't want to bother. It's not bothering. She cut in. Her voice still gentle, but firm. I'm inviting you. I went quiet. Part of me wanted to refuse. Because I was used to not belonging anywhere. But another part of me was tired. Tired of pretending I was okay. Tired of being strong alone. From their table, an older man raised his hand and waved. If she's already said it, you don't really have a choice. The whole table laughed. The kind of laughter that doesn't judge you. A younger man, early 30s, tilted his head at me. We've got pie, and I guarantee it's better than whatever's getting cold on your plate. He winked. I looked down at my food. Cold, lonely, no one across from me. Then I looked back at them. A full table, full of laughter, full of life. Okay, I heard myself say. Just for a bit. No such thing as just a bit. She smiled, gently placed her hand on my shoulder. Either you're family or you're not. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady. Not because I was afraid of them, but because I wasn't used to being welcomed. They pulled out a chair for me. Someone handed me a clean plate. Someone else poured me a drink. I hadn't even fully sat down yet when someone asked, "What's your name?" "Ling," I answered. A name that had stopped feeling like it belonged to me in my old family. "Nice to meet you, Lin," the woman said. "I'm Mrs. Heinck. This is my husband, Mr. Min, my son, Tuan, and this is his family." Everyone nodded, smiled. No one asked why I was alone. No one pushed. No one made me feel like I had to explain myself. They just let me be there. Naturally. Like I had always belonged at that table. Mr. Min slid a plate of potatoes toward me. "Eat. Don't let it get cold." Tuan handed me a piece of bread. "Trust me, this is the best part." A little girl tilted her head and asked, "Do you know how to tell stories?" I laughed. A real laugh. Not forced, not guarded, not calculated. And that's when I realized. It had been a long time since I had laughed like that. Not the kind of laugh to please someone else. Not the kind of laugh to avoid being called too sensitive. But because I actually wanted to. They talked, interrupted each other, teased each other, shared food. No rules. And somehow, no one was left out. I sat there, listening, answering sometimes, laughing sometimes. And a strange feeling appeared. Not joy, not happiness, but safety. Something I had never felt, even in my own family. Mrs. Han turned to me, gently asked, "Now tell me the truth. What happened today?" I went quiet, looked down at my glass. Part of me wanted to lie. Like always. "I'm fine. It's nothing." But this time, I couldn't. Because for the first time, someone asked, and truly wanted to hear the answer. I took a breath. Slow, deep. "Eh." My voice trembled slightly. "My mom told me not to come home." No one interrupted. No one overreacted. They just listened. And I didn't know it then. But the moment I said that out loud was the moment my life started turning in a completely different direction. Eh. My voice caught. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I had never truly said this out loud before. My mom told me not to come home. No one reacted immediately. No one gasped. No one looked shocked. They just listened. Because my sister is pregnant. I gave a small laugh, a familiar kind. And they said, I would cause drama. I waited. Waited for something I had heard my whole life. There must be a reason. Every family is like that. You should try to understand them. But none of that came. Mrs. Han gently placed her hand on the table. Looked at me. Not with pity, not with judgment. Just understanding. And you believe that? That question went straight to a place I had been avoiding for years. I hesitated. I think maybe I am a bit difficult. No? She said it softly, but firmly. I looked up. She was still looking at me. Not maybe. You've been told that for far too long. The whole table went quiet. No one interrupted. You know, she continued, I worked in family counseling for over 20 years. And I've seen many cases like yours. I tightened my grip on the glass. Part of me wanted to believe her. Another part was afraid to. The people who get labeled as dramatic. She paused, looked straight at me, are usually the ones who are brave enough to say what no one else wants to hear. My heart started pounding. And the people who make you believe you are the problem. She tilted her head slightly, her voice slower now, are often the ones creating the problem. I couldn't speak. Because in my mind, everything started falling into place. The times I asked why wasn't I invited? The times I said I want to be part of this too. The times I tried to explain how I felt. And all I got back was, you make things complicated. You're too sensitive. You make everything uncomfortable. Not because I was wrong, but because I said what they didn't want to face. Something inside me shifted. Not loudly. Not like a sudden realization. But like a truth quietly returning to where it always belonged. You are not the problem, Mrs. Hahn said. This time, slower. Not now, not ever. I couldn't hold it anymore. Tears fell. Not controlled, not hidden. And for the first time, I wasn't ashamed. No one looked at me like I was too much. No one seemed uncomfortable. No one told me to calm down. Tuan quietly slid a box of tissues toward me. Didn't say a word. A small gesture. But exactly what I needed. If you've ever been made to believe you were the problem, comment I'm not wrong. I wiped my tears. Took a deep breath. Thank you, I said. But I knew those 2 words weren't enough. Because she didn't just say something kind. She gave me back a part of myself I had lost. Dinner continued. But for me, everything was different. The food started to have taste again. The laughter started to reach me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was trying to survive. I was just there. And I didn't know it yet. But what happened next? And it would change my life even more. The meal lasted longer than I expected. No one rushed. No one checked the time. No one made it feel like my presence was unnecessary. The main course passed, pie was served, hot coffee followed. The kids grew sleepy. The adults spoke more softly. Everything felt completely ordinary. But to me, it was the most extraordinary thing I had ever experienced. Because for the first time, I didn't have to try to be allowed to stay. No one asked when I was leaving. No one made me feel like I should go. I just was there. And strangely, no one had a problem with that. When the bill arrived, I instinctively reached for my wallet. Let me. No. Mr. Min raised his hand. His voice was calm, but firm. This one's on us. I can't. You can. He smiled. It's a tradition. Tradition, I asked. Yeah. Tuan leaned slightly toward me. Every year we invite a stranger to our table. I froze. A stranger. Yeah. He shrugged. If we see someone sitting alone, we don't think they should stay that way. Such a simple sentence. But it caught in my throat. Not because what they did was grand, but because no one in my family had ever done that for me. No one had ever thought, we should bring her in. We should ask if she's okay. We should make sure she stays. Never. We stood up from the table. Put on our coats, got ready to leave. At the door, Mrs. Hahn stopped. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small card. Handed it to me. I'm not forcing you, she said. But if you don't want to be alone anymore. I looked down. An address, a phone number. Every Sunday we have dinner at our place. She smiled. You can come, anytime. I didn't know what to say. En invitation. No conditions, no expectations, no need to prove anything. Just, you can come. Mr. Minge stood behind her, nodded. There's always room for one more. Tuan crossed his arms. Looked at me. And I promise, the pie will be even better next time. I laughed. Again. Naturally. Outside. The snow was still falling. Heavier, colder. But this time, I didn't feel cold. I stood there. In the doorway. Between two worlds. On one side, the family that had left me behind. On the other, strangers who had just opened a door for me to walk in. Thank you, I said. Soft, but real. Mrs. Hahn stepped closer. Hugged me. A hug. Without hesitation, without distance. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time someone held me like that. Don't thank me, she said quietly. Just don't disappear. That sentence stayed with me long after. I stood there watching them walk away. The whole family. Laughing, talking, waiting for each other. No one left behind. The door closed. The restaurant slowly emptied. I was still standing there, holding that small card in my hand. And for the first time in years, a thought appeared. Not fear, not doubt. But maybe I don't have to go back to where I used to be. But I didn't know then. That small invitation would become the thing that changed my entire life over the next 5 years. I didn't go the next Sunday, not the one after that either. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid. Afraid that feeling was temporary, afraid that if I walked in, I would be pushed out again. Afraid that if I got used to being welcomed, I wouldn't survive losing it again. I had learned to protect myself by not expecting anything. But Mrs. Hahn didn't let me disappear. Week 2, I got a message. Just one line. There's still pie this Sunday. I looked at the screen, smiled faintly. Didn't reply. Week 3. Another message. The table still has an empty seat. No pressure, no guilt. No why didn't you come? Just a reminder that I was still being waited for. By week 4, I was standing in front of their house. Not a big house, but warm yellow light spilled from inside. Voices, laughter. I stood there. 5 minutes. If I turned around now, everything would go back to normal. Safe. No risk. No hurt. But also, nothing. I raised my hand. Knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Mrs. Hahn stood there. She looked at me. No surprise, no questions. Just a smile. Finally you came. Not who are you, not why are you here. Just, you belong here. She pulled me in, hugged me. Just like before. Come in, everyone's waiting. That sentence made my heart pause. They're waiting. Someone was waiting for me. A feeling I had never known. Dinner that night was just like before. Laughter. Food passed around, stories overlapping. But for me, everything was different. This time, I didn't sit at the edge of the table. I was pulled into the middle. No one had to rearrange anything. No one had to make space. That seat felt like it had always been mine. Tuan sat across from me. Looked at me, smiled. See, I told you. I wasn't sure I'd come back, I said. Yeah. He nodded. But I was. I frowned. Because normal people. He tilted his head. Don't skip pie twice. I laughed. Again. Without defense, without performance. After dinner, everyone cleaned up. No instructions, no assigning roles. I stood up automatically. Let me help. No. Tuan handed me a towel. There are no guests here. I looked at him. Only family. That sentence landed somewhere deep. Quietly. But it made me want to stay. In the weeks after that, I came back. Then again, it stopped being a try and became a part of my week. I started to learn. Mr. Min loved football. Mrs. Han never followed recipes. The kids argued every time they played cards. And Tuan. Tuan was the kind of person who didn't try to impress. He didn't ask too much, didn't dig too deep. But he was always there. Texts at 2 a.m. Are you awake? Pointless debates about movies. Sitting next to each other without needing to talk. Nothing forced, nothing rushed. Just natural. And that scared me. Because for the first time, I had something to lose. One evening, after everyone had left, I stood outside on the porch. Tuan came out, stood next to me. You still think they were right, don't you? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Sometimes I still think, maybe I am the problem. Tuan shook his head. No. You were just in the wrong place. I turned to look at him. And if I'm in the right place? He smiled slightly. Then you won't have to try to be allowed to stay. That sentence stayed with me for a long time. And I didn't know it yet. But this relationship wasn't going to stay just friendship. Nothing changed overnight. There was no moment like, oh, I'm in love with this person now. It happened slowly, almost unnoticeable. Like the way you don't realize when winter ends, until one day, you step outside, and it's no longer cold. Tuan and I were the same. We didn't begin. We just slowly stayed in each other's lives. At first, it was random messages. Have you eaten? Have you seen this movie? Don't? It's terrible. Then late-night calls. No real reason, just not wanting to hang up. Then the times I came over and naturally sat next to him. No one arranged it. No one pointed it out. But if one day I didn't show up, he would be the first to ask, "Are you okay?" Not controlling, not accusing. Just caring. Something I once thought was a luxury. There was a time I got sick. Nothing serious, just a mild fever. But I didn't tell anyone. That was my habit. I was used to handling everything alone. That evening, there was a knock on my door. I opened it. Tuan was standing there, a bag in his hand. You didn't reply to my messages, he said. I figured something wasn't right. I stood there, speechless. He walked in, put the bag down, took out medicine, porridge, water. Sit. His voice wasn't loud. But I listened. You don't have to do everything alone. A simple sentence. But to me, it broke a wall that had existed for 27 years. That night, he stayed. Didn't talk much. Just there. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a burden. Everything changed after that. Not because of a confession, not because of a decision, but because I started allowing myself to believe. To believe that someone wouldn't leave. 2 years passed, faster than I expected. And one day, Tuan said, I want to take you out to dinner. Where? He looked at me, smiled slightly. Where it all started. I walked into that restaurant and recognized it immediately. The table, the corner, the lighting, everything was the same. Only me. I wasn't the same anymore. We sat down. It feels full circle, I said. Yeah. He nodded. I feel that too. He went quiet for a moment. That wasn't like him. He was usually relaxed, easy. But today, he felt different. Like he was preparing for something. Ling. He said my name. I looked up. I've been thinking about this for a long time. My heart started racing. Not because I guessed, but because I felt something was coming. I know you've been hurt, he said. I know you're always afraid that one day everything will disappear. I didn't say anything because it was true. But I'm not here to fix your past, he continued. I just want to be the person who doesn't leave in your future. He took out a small box. The noise in the restaurant faded. Everything disappeared. Except that moment. Ling. His voice slowed. I want to choose you. Not just once. Not just when it's easy. Every day. He opened the box. A ring. Simple. But enough to make my breath catch. Do you want to choose me back? I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't emotional, but because I felt something I had never felt before. Peace. I looked at him. The person who had stayed. Who didn't force me to change. Who didn't make me prove I was enough. Who just stayed. Yes, I said. Soft. But certain. I choose you. He slid the ring onto my finger. And in that moment, I realized something. I was no longer the one who got left behind. The whole restaurant clapped. But I didn't notice. Because for the first time in my life, I knew for sure I wouldn't be abandoned. In the corner, Mrs. Han and Mr. Min were standing there, smiling, like they already knew. Like they had been waiting for this day. And I didn't know it yet. The next step wouldn't just be a wedding. It would be a decision my old family would never see coming. After the proposal, everything moved quickly. We started planning the wedding. The venue, the menu, the guest list, the music. All the things I had never dared to imagine. Not because I didn't want them, but because I never believed I would have a day like that. A day where I wasn't standing on the outside, but the one at the center. But in the middle of all those plans, there was one small detail that kept me awake at night. The wedding invitation. One simple line. Parents of the bride. I stood at the table, holding the sample card. The names needed to be printed, but I couldn't write them. Their names? The people who hadn't called me in 3 years, who didn't ask if I was alive, who didn't know where I was. They didn't know I was engaged. And if there hadn't been a wedding, they probably never would. I wasn't angry anymore. Not anymore. I just didn't feel like they belonged in my life. But the problem was, that line couldn't be left blank. I sat in Mrs. Han's living room. The draft invitation in front of me. She walked in, looked at me. What's wrong, dear? I showed her the card. I don't know what to write here. She sat down beside me. Looked at it. Silent for a moment. Do you remember the first time we talked? She asked. I nodded. I told you. She smiled softly. Family isn't always the one you're born into. I looked at her. Some families, she continued, are the ones you choose. I had heard that before, but this time, it meant something different. You mean? I didn't finish the sentence. She placed her hand over mine. Do you know, there's a way to make that real. My heart paused. What do you mean? She looked at me. Gentle, but certain. Adopt you. I froze. But I'm 27. So. She smiled. The law doesn't care about age, when the heart has already decided. I didn't say anything. Because in my mind, everything started connecting. The dinners, the way they waited for me, the way they called me family. It wasn't politeness. It was real. Mrs. Hink. My voice trembled. Are you sure? I wasn't asking about paperwork. I wasn't asking about process. I was asking about love. She didn't answer right away. She pulled me into a hug. I've seen you as my daughter. Her voice was soft. Since the day you were crying alone at that table? I couldn't hold it back. Tears fell. Not from pain, but because, for the first time, I was chosen. Not out of obligation, not out of responsibility, but because they wanted me. Mr. Min stepped out from the other room. Well, finally said it, huh? He smiled. I looked at him. You too. We've talked about this for a while, he nodded. We were just waiting for you to be ready. Once again, I was standing between two worlds. But this time, I didn't hesitate. I took a breath. I want this. Not because I lacked a family, but because I had found the right one. The process was quiet. No dramatic moments. Just paperwork, signatures, meetings with a lawyer. But to me, every step mattered. The day we signed, I sat in that room. The judge looked at me. Are you sure? I looked at Mrs. Han, at Mr. Min. No hesitation. Yes. The pen touched the paper. One signature. But it changed my entire life. From that day on, I was no longer Lin from my old family. I was Ling Wen, daughter of Mr. Min and Mrs. Han. Not just on paper, but in every meal, every call, every moment they waited for me. The wedding invitations were reprinted. This time, I didn't hesitate. Parents of the bride, Mr. Min and Mrs. Han. And below that, a small line, the family who chose her. I looked at the card, and for the first time, I didn't feel something missing. I felt complete. But I already knew. On the wedding day, things wouldn't be as peaceful as I thought. Because some people don't accept being replaced. Here is your English translation, keeping the emotional tone natural, clear, and aligned with storytelling. My wedding day was sunny. A soft kind of sunlight, not harsh, not blinding. Everything was almost perfect. The venue was a small garden on the outskirts. White flowers, wooden chairs, warm golden light. I stood in front of the mirror, in my wedding dress. Not extravagant, but enough to make me realize how much I had changed. I was no longer the girl, crying alone in a corner of a restaurant. No longer the person who had to try to be allowed to stay. Mrs. Hahn stood behind me, gently adjusting my veil. "You look beautiful," she said. I looked at her. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "I'm not worried about marrying Tuan," I said. Then paused. "I just don't know what might happen today." She placed her hand on my shoulder. "No matter what happens, you have a family here." I hugged her. And this time, I didn't hesitate to say, "Mom." She froze for a second, then held me tighter. "Yes, Mom's here." Outside, guests had started arriving. Tuan stood at the end of the aisle, in a gray suit, looking at me like I was the only thing he could see. The music started. I walked. No shaking, no hesitation. Because this time, I knew I was walking toward the right person. Mr. Min walked me down the aisle. He didn't say much. Just gently squeezed my hand. Like a quiet promise. The ceremony was simple, but real. Vows, eyes meeting, hands holding. Nothing flashy. Just one thing. Certainty. I choose you. I choose you too. When the ring slid onto my finger, I wasn't just getting married. I was fully stepping out of my old life. The reception began. Music, laughter, glasses clinking. Everything. Exactly how a wedding should be. Until a staff member approached me. "Lin," he whispered. "There are two people outside." "What is it?" "They say they're your parents." My heart didn't race. No panic, no anger. Just a strange feeling. Like I had been waiting for this moment. Tuan stepped closer. "What's going on?" "My old family." He gently squeezed my hand. "I'll handle it." "No." I shook my head. "This is mine." I thought for a second. I could refuse them. I could send them away. But no. Another thought appeared. "Let them see." "Let them in," I said. "But seat them in the back." Tuan looked at me, then nodded. A few minutes later, I saw them. My mother, my father, standing at the edge of the wedding. No one recognized them. No one knew who they were. And that was what confused them the most. They looked around. A wedding of over 100 people. But no one greeted them. No one welcomed them. No one needed them. The MC stepped forward. "Before we continue, I would like to introduce a very special part. The parents of the bride." I looked at them. My mother straightened up, ready to step forward. As if it was her place. As if she still had that right. Please welcome. The MC paused. Mr. Min and Mrs. Heinck. The entire hall applauded. People stood. Mr. Min and Mrs. Han smiled. Walked forward. Naturally. Confidently. Like people who belonged there. From the back, I saw my mother freeze. Her face went pale. What? My father said nothing. Just stood there. Confused. Shocked. And then he understood. If you were in my place, would you let them in or turn them away? Comment 1 or 2. My mother rushed forward. What is this? Who are those people? I looked at her. Kaum. My parents. What? I was adopted 2 years ago. She stepped back. You can't replace us. I looked straight into her eyes. I didn't replace anyone. You left me first. Silence. The entire space went still. That was just one Thanksgiving, she shouted. No. I shook my head. That was 27 years. My father stepped forward. Ling. His voice trembled. I'm sorry. I looked at him. For the first time. Truly looked. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I know. But an apology doesn't change what happened. Mrs. Han stepped beside me. Said nothing. Just placed her hand over mine. A quiet reminder. You're not alone. My mother looked at her. You stole my daughter. Mr. Min stepped forward. His voice low. Firm. No. We didn't steal anything. We simply picked up what you threw away. That sentence fell heavy. Accurate. Impossible to argue. My mother stepped back. Speechless. I took one step forward. Looked at them. I don't hate you. I don't belong to you anymore. I chose. I turned. Looked at my new family. Looked at Tuan. And they chose me too. Security approached. Gently. Escorted them out. No noise, no chaos. Just an ending. When the doors closed, people began to clap. Not for drama, but because they understood. I turned back. Tuan was there. Waiting. Like he always did. Are you okay? I nodded. For the first time, I really am. But the story is not over yet. After they left, the wedding continued. The music returned. Laughter came back. Glasses clinked again. As if nothing had happened. But for me, everything had changed. Not because I had won, but because I no longer needed to prove anything. I didn't need their validation, didn't need them to understand, didn't need them to come back. Because for the first time, I had enough. Tuan held my hand. Come on, he said. We stepped onto the dance floor. Slow music. Soft lights. He spun me once. I smiled. Not a forced smile, but a light one. A feeling I didn't even know existed before. Are you really okay? He asked. I looked at him, then looked around. Mrs. Han talking with guests, Mr. Min laughing loudly, the kids running around. No one left me behind. Yeah, I nodded. For the first time in my life, I really am okay. That night, I didn't think about them. Not about what I had lost, not about the past. I just was there. In the present, and it was enough. But the story didn't end there. The next morning, my phone started buzzing. Messages, calls, notifications. My old family, relatives, people who hadn't contacted me in years. What you did was wrong. Family is still family. You embarrassed your parents. I read them. Then deleted them. No replies, no arguments, no explanations. Because for the first time, I didn't need them to understand for me to feel at peace. Another message appeared. My aunt. I always knew you were treated unfairly. I'm proud of you. I looked at the screen. Smiled softly. Not everyone is blind. But what mattered most was I no longer needed anyone to stand on my side. I was already standing on my own. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. From my sister. I read it. She said, things weren't what I thought, that the family was just trying to keep the peace, that I had always made things harder. I folded the letter. No anger, no sadness. Just no connection anymore. What do you think Tuan asked? I set the letter down. I don't need them to understand. Because that was never my responsibility. 1 year later, life settled. We moved into a small house. Not far from family. Sundays were still dinner together. No one said it out loud. But I knew. I was no longer a guest. I was part of it. And then, I got pregnant. The day I told Mrs. Han. She cried. Mr. Min turned away, pretending to wipe his glasses. Tuan held me. Like everything had finally fallen into place. One evening, I sat in the baby's room, looking at the small crib. I placed my hand on my belly. And for the first time, I said something I should have heard long ago. You won't have to try to be loved. I made that promise. Not to the world, but to myself. 5 years later, on Thanksgiving again, I sat at the head of the table. Not a small corner table anymore, but a long one. Full of people, full of laughter. My daughter sat in my lap. Mrs. Han cut the pie. Mr. Min secretly took a bite early. Tuan was arguing with someone about football. No one was left behind. Lin, Mrs. Han called. Say a few words. I stood up. Looked around. These people? weren't bound by blood, but they were family. 5 years ago, I began. I was sitting alone in a restaurant, and I thought, maybe I don't belong anywhere. I looked at her. And then a stranger invited me to her table. The room chuckled softly. I raised my glass. To family. Not the one we're born into, but the one we choose. Glasses lifted. Clinked. Laughter. And this time, I wasn't standing outside watching. If you've ever had to walk away to find yourself, comment I chose my life again. I didn't lose a family. I just stopped trying to hold on to people who never chose me. And when I did that, I found people who choose me every single day. If you're in a place where you always have to understand, always the one left behind, always the one trying, remember this. You don't have to make yourself smaller to fit into a place that was never meant for you. You can walk away, you can choose again, and you absolutely deserve to be chosen. My story ends here. But maybe this is where yours begins.